In a galaxy teetering on the brink of change, humanity stood at a crossroads. For 25 years, Earth had been a junior member of the Galactic Federation, forced to abide by its rules and restrictions. But when the Federation's demand to surrender 80% of human colonies pushed Earth to the breaking point, humanity made an unimaginable choice: freedom. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, along with Earth's most trusted leaders, faced the greatest diplomatic crisis in history. With the Federation's ultimatum hanging over them, the decision was clear. The galaxy would never be the same again. In a stunning act of defiance, humanity walked away from the Federation, choosing independence over oppression. The consequences of that decision would echo across the stars, as the Federation's retaliation ignited a conflict that would reshape the future of the galaxy. This is the story of how humanity chose freedom and changed the galaxy forever. The breaking point. The Great Hall of the Galactic Federation stretched before Ambassador Elena Rodriguez like a cathedral made of living crystal. 200 species had gathered here, their forms ranging from graceful energy beings to massive rock-like creatures that moved with surprising gentleness. Elena had walked these halls for 5 years, representing humanity's interests with patience and diplomacy. Today, she knew, would be different. Elena adjusted her simple black suit, a stark contrast to the elaborate robes and biomechanical enhancements worn by other ambassadors. Beside her stood Captain Marcus Webb, his military uniform crisp and his weathered face serious. The former Marine had seen combat on 3 different worlds, and his instincts were telling him trouble was coming. The Hegemony Council has reached a decision regarding the human expansion issue, announced Praetor Veltar, the crystalline being who led the Federation. His voice resonated through translation devices, reaching every species in their own language. The rapid growth of human colonies poses a threat to galactic stability. Elena felt her stomach tighten. For months, various Federation members had complained about humanity's expansion rate. In just 25 years since joining the Federation, humans had established colonies on over 300 worlds. Other species took centuries to expand so far. Dr. Sarah Chen leaned forward from her seat behind Elena. The xenobiologist had spent her career studying alien cultures, trying to bridge the gap between human and alien thinking. "They're scared," she whispered. "The old species see change as dangerous." The praetor continued, his crystalline form pulsing with different colors as he spoke. "Human expansion disrupts established trade routes. Human innovation threatens traditional ways of life. Human independence undermines the careful balance we have maintained for millennia." Elena stood slowly, her movement drawing attention from hundreds of alien eyes, sensors, and detection organs. "Honored Praetor, humanity has followed all Federation expansion protocols. Our colonies have been established only on uninhabited worlds. We have shared our discoveries and technologies freely." A sound like grinding metal filled the hall as Warlord Crixon of the Enforcer caste spoke. The massive insect-like being towered over most other delegates. "Humans fight too much. Humans change too much. Humans ask too many questions. This threatens order." "Questions threaten your control," Elena replied, her voice carrying clearly through the hall. "Humanity believes in progress, in improvement, in the right of all beings to grow and learn." Murmurs rippled through the assembled delegates. Some species nodded agreement, but Elena could see fear in many others. The Federation had maintained peace for thousands of years by keeping things exactly as they were. Change meant uncertainty, and uncertainty meant potential conflict. Praetor Veltar's form shifted to deep red, a sign of serious announcement. "The Hegemony Council hereby demands that humanity surrender administrative control of 80% of its colonies to Federation oversight. Human military forces must be reduced by 60%. All human technological research must be approved by Federation science committees before implementation." The hall fell silent. Elena felt the blood drain from her face. Behind her, she heard Captain Webb's sharp intake of breath. These weren't just restrictions, they were terms of surrender. "Furthermore," the praetor continued, "humans will accept Federation governors on all remaining colonies. These governors will ensure compliance with galactic stability protocols. Elena's mind raced. The terms were impossible. No sovereign species could accept such conditions and remain free. She thought of the bustling human colonies scattered across the galaxy, each one a testament to human determination and ingenuity. She thought of the children being born on those worlds, growing up free under open skies. "Honored Praetor," Elena said, her voice steady despite her racing heart. "I must consult with my government before responding to such comprehensive proposals." "There is no consultation period," Warlord Crixon declared. "Accept these terms immediately, or face the consequences of defying the Federation." The threat hung in the air like poison. Elena looked around the hall, seeing the faces of species she had worked with for years. Some looked uncomfortable, others determined. A few, mostly younger species like humanity, looked angry. Elena activated her communication device, connecting directly to Earth and the Colonial Council. Senator David Kim's face appeared on her screen, broadcasting from the emergency session of the human government that had been called when news of the ultimatum leaked. "Ambassador Rodriguez," the senator said, his voice formal but carrying emotion, "the Colonial Council has voted. We cannot and will not accept terms that would end human freedom and independence." Elena nodded, feeling a mix of pride and fear. She turned back to face the assembled Federation, 200 species that had just become potential enemies. "The human species respectfully declines these terms," Elena announced. "We joined the Federation as free beings, and we will remain free beings." The reaction was immediate and explosive. Dozens of species began speaking at once, their voices creating a cacophony that overwhelmed the translation systems. Some sounded angry, others fearful, a few supportive. Praetor Veltar's form turned black, the color of final decisions. "Then humanity chooses to stand outside the Federation. All trade agreements are terminated. All mutual defense pacts are void. All technological sharing agreements are cancelled. Humanity stands alone." Elena gathered her papers with steady hands, though her heart was pounding. Captain Webb moved to stand beside her, his hand resting casually near his sidearm. Dr. Chen joined them, her face pale but determined. "We did not choose to stand alone," Elena said, her voice carrying to every corner of the hall. "We chose to stand free. Any species that values freedom and progress over control and stagnation is welcome to stand with us." With that, Elena Rodriguez walked out of the Galactic Federation Hall for the last time. Behind her, chaos erupted as species chose sides and ancient alliances began to crumble. On the transport back to Earth, Elena sat in silence with her team. The weight of what had just happened pressed down on all of them. Humanity had just declared independence from the most powerful organization in the galaxy. "What happens now?" Dr. Chen asked quietly. Captain Webb checked his communication device, reading messages from fleet commanders across human space. "Now we find out what humans can really do when we stop asking permission." Elena looked out at the stars streaming past as their ship jumped to faster-than-light speed. Each point of light represented possibilities. Worlds to explore, species to meet, futures to build. The Federation had tried to limit those possibilities, to keep humanity contained and controlled. "Admiral Harrison reports all fleet units are moving to defensive positions," Captain Webb continued. "Colony governors are implementing emergency protocols. President Santos is addressing the nation in 2 hours." Elena nodded, but her thoughts were elsewhere. She was thinking about the younger species in the Federation Hall, the ones who had looked angry when the ultimatum was delivered. She was thinking about the trade worlds where human innovations had improved lives for countless beings. She was thinking about the research stations where human and alien scientists worked together on projects that could benefit everyone. The Federation had made a crucial mistake. They assumed that because humanity was young and relatively small, they could be bullied into submission. They assumed that other species would quietly accept the suppression of progress and freedom. They assumed that the galaxy would remain unchanged forever. They were about to learn how wrong they were. As their ship approached Earth, Elena could see the orbital shipyards working at full capacity. For years, human engineers had been quietly developing new technologies, preparing for the day when humanity might need to stand on its own. That day had arrived sooner than anyone expected, but humanity was not unprepared. The Federation had spent millennia perfecting the art of maintaining control. Humanity was about to show them the power of embracing change. The galaxy would never be the same again, and Elena Rodriguez had just fired the shot that would echo across the stars for generations to come. The age of asking permission was over. The age of human independence had begun. The first strike. 3 weeks had passed since Ambassador Elena Rodriguez walked out of the Federation Hall, and the galaxy was holding its breath. The economic blockade had begun immediately, with Federation worlds refusing to trade with human colonies. Supply ships were turned away at alien ports. Communication networks were restricted. The Federation expected humanity to come crawling back within days, begging for readmission. They had underestimated human stubbornness. General Lisa Thompson stood in the command center of New Haven Colony, watching her officers work with calm efficiency. The agricultural world had been humanity's newest colony, established just 2 years ago. Its population of 50,000 had volunteered to be the test case for human independence. If they could survive without Federation support, any human world could. Production reports are coming in from all sectors, announced Lieutenant Colonel Barnes, her deputy commander. Food production is up 15% from last month. The new farming techniques are working better than expected. General Thompson nodded, but her attention was focused on the tactical display showing the space around New Haven. 3 Federation patrol fleets had been conducting exercises just outside the system for the past week. She knew they were gathering intelligence, preparing for something bigger. Dr. Michael Foster rushed into the command center, his lab coat still stained with chemical residue. The weapons researcher had been working around the clock since the crisis began. "General, we need to talk. The Federation ships are carrying something we've never seen before." "What kind of something?" Thompson asked, her instincts telling her this was important. "Quantum disruptors. They can tear apart the molecular bonds of any material. One shot could level an entire city." Foster's face was pale. "They're not planning to capture this colony. They're planning to make an example of it." Thompson felt ice in her veins. The Federation had always claimed to be civilized, above such brutal tactics. But desperate times, she realized, made monsters of even the most peaceful beings. "How long do we have?" she asked. "The fleet movements suggest they'll attack within hours," Foster replied. "General, our shields won't stop those weapons. Our conventional defenses are useless." Thompson looked around the command center at her officers. They were good people, volunteers who had come to New Haven to build something better. They deserved to know the truth. "Listen up, everyone," she announced. "The Federation is about to attack this colony with weapons designed to destroy everything we've built. We can evacuate, or we can fight with everything we have." The response was immediate and unanimous. Not a single person chose evacuation. Captain Sofia Martinez was already in her fighter when the first Federation ships appeared. The human pilot had been born in space, raised on mining stations and cargo haulers. She knew every trick of space combat, every way to make a small ship punch above its weight. "Phoenix Squadron, this is Phoenix Leader," she announced over the communication channel. "Remember, we're not just fighting for New Haven, we're fighting to prove that humans won't be pushed around." Her squadron of 12 fighters seemed pitiful against the 300 Federation ships approaching the colony. But Sophia had something the Federation didn't expect. Engineer Alex Reeves' latest invention. "Activating phase jump drives," Sophia announced. "Let's show them what human ingenuity looks like." The fighters simply vanished. Admiral Kethvar of the Federation First Fleet stared at his sensors in confusion. The human fighters had been there one moment, gone the next. This wasn't any technology in Federation databases. "Sir, detecting massive energy signatures throughout the fleet," his tactical officer reported. "The human fighters are inside our formation." The Federation ships had been designed to fight enemies that approached from predictable directions, using known technologies. They were not prepared for fighters that could appear anywhere, anytime, bypassing shields and defenses entirely. Sophia materialized her fighter inside the hangar bay of the Federation flagship. Before the alien crew could react, she fired her weapons at the ship's internal systems. Other human fighters appeared throughout the Federation fleet, striking at engines, weapons, command centers. "Phase jump to next target," Sophia ordered, her fighter disappearing just as Federation security forces arrived. The Federation fleet found itself fighting an enemy that refused to follow the rules of engagement. Human fighters would appear, strike, and vanish. Federation ships began firing at empty space, trying to hit targets that were already gone. Commander Ryan O'Neill led the ground assault when Federation troops tried to land on New Haven's surface. The Special Operations leader had trained his teams for exactly this scenario, fighting a technologically superior enemy on humanity's terms. "Remember, they're used to enemies who fight fair," O'Neill told his soldiers. "We're going to fight smart." The Federation troops who landed expected to face conventional resistance. Instead, they found themselves in a nightmare of guerrilla warfare. Human soldiers appeared from tunnels, struck with devastating precision, then vanished underground. Supply lines were cut, communications were jammed, command posts were destroyed by enemies who seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. The Federation had spent thousands of years perfecting their military technology, but they had grown complacent. They fought the same way they had always fought, using the same tactics against the same types of enemies. Humans fought differently. Humans adapted. Within 6 hours, the mighty Federation First Fleet was in full retreat. They had lost 60 ships to an enemy that shouldn't have been able to scratch their paint. Their ground forces were trapped in bunkers, afraid to venture outside. The news spread across the galaxy at light speed. Humanity had not just survived the Federation's first strike, they had won decisively. General Thompson stood on the observation deck of New Haven's command center, watching the Federation ships flee. Her communication board was lighting up with messages from across human space and beyond. "General, we're receiving communication requests from 17 different species," reported her communications officer. "They want to know how we did it." Thompson smiled. The Federation had made a crucial mistake. They had attacked humanity publicly, expecting an easy victory that would discourage other species from following humanity's example. Instead, they had demonstrated that the Federation was not invincible. "Put me through to all human colonies," Thompson ordered. "It's time to share what we've learned." The phase jump technology was just the beginning. While the Federation had spent centuries refining their existing weapons and ships, human engineers had been exploring entirely new approaches to warfare. They had developed weapons that used principles of physics the Federation didn't understand. They had created armor that could adapt to different types of attacks. They had built ships that could repair themselves in the middle of battle. Most importantly, they had trained their people to think independently, to adapt to changing situations, to find creative solutions to impossible problems. Engineer Alex Reeves was already working on improvements to the phase jump system when the victory reports came in. "We can make the jumps more precise," he told Dr. Foster. "We can create ships that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. The Federation won't know how to fight something they can't even see." Dr. Foster was developing new weapons based on human understanding of quantum mechanics. "We can create bullets that ignore shields, bombs that exist in probability clouds, energy beams that adjust their frequency to match whatever they're hitting." But the most significant development was happening in the communication networks. Species across the galaxy were contacting human colonies, asking questions, seeking information. The Federation's information control was breaking down. Captain Martinez received a message from a young Zilani pilot serving in the Federation fleet. "How did you make your ships disappear?" the alien asked. "My people have been trying to develop stealth technology for centuries." "We didn't make them disappear," Sophia replied. "We made them exist in a different phase of reality. Want to learn how?" Similar conversations were happening across the galaxy. Human scientists were sharing their discoveries with alien researchers who had grown frustrated with Federation restrictions on innovation. Human engineers were collaborating with alien inventors who had been forbidden to experiment with new technologies. The Federation had built their power on controlling information, limiting innovation, keeping species dependent on established systems. Humanity was tearing down those barriers, offering knowledge freely to anyone who wanted it. Admiral Kethvar's report to the Federation Council was devastating. The humans possess technology we cannot counter, he admitted. Their ships can appear anywhere without warning. Their weapons can penetrate any defense. Their tactics are completely unpredictable. More importantly, he reported something that terrified the Federation leadership. They are sharing their technology with other species. The Zilani have already begun experimenting with phase jump technology. The Corvani are developing quantum weapons. The Thraxians are building adaptive armor. The Federation had tried to make an example of humanity. Instead, they had made humanity an inspiration. The galaxy was about to discover what happened when beings who had been suppressed for millennia were suddenly given the tools to be free. General Thompson received a priority message from Earth. President Santos was calling an emergency meeting of all human colony leaders. The phase jump technology meant they could all attend in person, traveling across the galaxy in hours rather than months. We're not just fighting for our own freedom anymore, Thompson told her staff. We're fighting for the freedom of every species that wants to grow, to learn, to become something better than they are today. The first strike was over. Humanity had won a victory that would echo across the stars. But Thompson knew this was just the beginning. The Federation had billions of ships, thousands of worlds, resources beyond imagination. They also had something humanity was about to take away from them. The certainty that their way was the only way, that change was dangerous, that freedom was impossible. The galaxy was about to learn what humans had always known, that the greatest weapon was not technology or numbers, but the unbreakable human spirit that refused to accept limits on what was possible. The New Galactic Order. 6 months after the Battle of New Haven, the galaxy was transforming in ways no one had imagined possible. President Maria Santos stood before the newly constructed assembly hall on the human colony of Liberty Prime, addressing representatives from 47 different species. The hall itself was a symbol of the new age. Built using human phase shift technology, it existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously, allowing beings from different environmental needs to attend the same meeting. We gather today not as conquerors or conquered, President Santos began, her words translated into dozens of languages, but as free beings choosing our own destiny. The Free Species Alliance had grown beyond humanity's wildest expectations. What began as a handful of species inspired by human independence had become a galactic movement. The Zilani had been the first to officially join, followed by the innovative Corvani, the artistic Veiltar, and dozens of others who had grown tired of Federation restrictions. Admiral Chen Wei watched the proceedings from the military section of the hall. The former Federation naval officer had defected after seeing human technology in action, bringing with him detailed knowledge of Federation weaknesses and 3 entire alien fleets that had chosen freedom over oppression. The Federation is collapsing faster than we anticipated, Admiral Wei reported during a break in the proceedings. 12 more systems declared independence this week. Their economic networks are failing as trade routes realign around alliance worlds. Ambassador John Stevens, humanity's new chief diplomat, was coordinating with refugee species fleeing Federation persecution. The assembly hall had become a beacon for beings seeking freedom, and new transport ships arrived daily carrying aliens who had chosen to leave their homeworlds rather than submit to increased Federation control. The Hegemony Council is becoming more desperate, Stevens reported. They're imposing martial law on remaining Federation worlds, restricting travel, censoring communications. They're becoming everything they once claimed to oppose. Dr. Anna Petrov had been working with alien scientists to develop technologies that could help newly independent species defend themselves. The quantum physicist had made breakthrough discoveries about the nature of reality itself, discoveries that were being shared freely with anyone who wanted to learn. We've solved faster-than-light communication, Dr. Petrov announced to the assembly. Real-time coordination across galactic distances is now possible. No more waiting months for messages to travel between star systems. The implications were staggering. The Federation had maintained control partly through communication delays that made coordination between distant worlds nearly impossible. With instant communication, oppressed species could organize, plan, and act together in ways that had never been possible before. Captain Robert Hayes was leading the exploration of new trade routes that bypassed Federation space entirely. The veteran explorer had discovered something remarkable. Vast regions of the galaxy that the Federation had declared forbidden were actually rich in resources and suitable for colonization. The Federation had been hoarding entire sectors of space, keeping them empty to maintain artificial scarcity. "We found 17 habitable worlds in the outer spiral alone," Captain Hayes reported. Worlds that could support billions of beings, left empty while Federation worlds struggle with overcrowding. The revelation sent shockwaves through the Assembly. The Federation hadn't just been restricting innovation and freedom. They had been deliberately maintaining poverty and limitation to keep their member species dependent. Representative Kyla Zentar of the Corvani people stood to address the Assembly. Her species had been artists and inventors before joining the Federation centuries ago. Under Federation rule, they had been restricted to producing only approved art and forbidden from developing new technologies. "For 800 years, my people have lived under rules that told us what we could create, what we could imagine, what we could dream," she said, her melodic voice carrying emotion that touched every being in the hall. "In 6 months with the Alliance, we have made more progress than in 8 centuries under the Federation." The Corvani had embraced human concepts of individual rights and creative freedom. Their artists were producing works that blended human innovation with alien aesthetics, creating beauty that neither species could have achieved alone. Their scientists were developing technologies that combined human ingenuity with alien understanding of exotic physics. Commander Velkari of the Thraxian Defense Force represented one of the Federation's former military powers. The warrior species had grown disgusted with the Federation's increasingly oppressive tactics and had brought their formidable fleets to the Alliance cause. "The Federation has forgotten the difference between strength and brutality," Commander Velkari declared. "True strength protects the weak and defends freedom. The Alliance fights for principles worth dying for." The military situation was becoming desperate for the Federation. Each defection weakened their forces while strengthening the Alliance. More importantly, Alliance forces fought with tactics and technologies the Federation couldn't counter. Phase jump attacks, quantum weapons, adaptive defenses, and instant communication gave Alliance forces advantages that traditional Federation doctrine couldn't address. President Santos called for the vote that would formally establish the new galactic government. Unlike the Federation's hierarchical system controlled by a small council of ancient species, the Alliance would be a true democracy where every species had an equal voice. "All in favor of establishing the Galactic Alliance of Free Worlds?" Santos asked. The response was unanimous. 47 species, representing billions of beings across thousands of worlds, voted to create a new form of galactic civilization based on freedom, innovation, and cooperation. The celebration was interrupted by urgent news. Admiral Wei received a priority message from Alliance intelligence networks. "The Federation is launching a final assault," he announced grimly. "Every remaining Federation fleet, nearly 10,000 ships, is converging on Earth. They're betting everything on one massive attack." The hall fell silent. Even with all their advantages, the Alliance couldn't match those numbers. The Federation was going to try to end the rebellion by destroying humanity's homeworld. President Santos looked around the hall at the faces of beings who had chosen freedom over security, growth over stability. "Then we show them what free beings can accomplish when they work together." The next 24 hours saw the largest military mobilization in galactic history. Alliance fleets from across the galaxy began phase jumping toward Earth. But this wouldn't be a conventional battle. Dr. Petrov had been working on something that would change warfare forever. "We can turn Earth's entire solar system into a phase shift zone," she explained to the assembled commanders. "Any ship entering the system will be scattered across multiple dimensions, They'll be fighting an enemy they can't even reach. But the true genius of the plan went beyond military tactics. Ambassador Stevens had been in secret communication with moderate factions within the Federation fleet. Many Federation officers were disgusted with their government's increasingly brutal tactics and were ready to switch sides. When the Federation fleet arrived at Earth, they found themselves facing not just Alliance forces, but a portion of their own fleet that had decided to join the rebellion. The psychological impact was devastating. The Federation's own military was abandoning them. The battle that followed became known as the Liberation of Sol. Federation ships found themselves scattered across dimensional barriers, unable to coordinate their attacks. Alliance forces appeared and disappeared at will, striking with precision and vanishing before retaliation was possible. Most importantly, Federation crews began surrendering rather than fighting for a cause they no longer believed in. Admiral Kethvar, the same officer who had led the failed attack on New Haven, was among those who surrendered. "We came here to preserve order," he said as he formally switched sides. "Instead, we found beings who were building something better than order. They were building justice." The Federation's final assault had become its final defeat. With their military scattered and their member species in open rebellion, the Federation government finally collapsed. President Santos addressed the galaxy from Earth's orbital station as the last Federation holdouts surrendered. "Today, we don't celebrate the defeat of an enemy. We celebrate the birth of something new. A galaxy where every being can choose their own path, where innovation is encouraged, where freedom is not a privilege granted by the powerful, but a right held by all." The aftermath of the liberation brought changes that transformed galactic civilization. The rigid caste systems that had kept species in assigned roles for millennia began to dissolve. Trade networks based on mutual benefit replaced systems designed to maintain dependency. Scientific research accelerated as beings shared knowledge freely, instead of hoarding it for competitive advantage. Captain Hayes led exploration missions that opened vast new regions of space for colonization. Dr. Petrov's dimensional research led to technologies that made scarcity obsolete. Ambassador Stevens helped establish diplomatic protocols based on equality rather than hierarchy. But perhaps the most important change was cultural. Young beings across the galaxy grew up believing they could become anything they wanted to be, create anything they could imagine, explore any frontier they chose to investigate. The concept of asking permission to innovate or explore became as foreign to them as the idea of breathing water. The Galactic Alliance of Free Worlds became more than a government. It became a promise that intelligence would be nurtured, that creativity would be celebrated, that the only limits on what beings could achieve were the limits they placed on themselves. Ambassador Elena Rodriguez, now serving as the Alliance's chief diplomatic officer, often reflected on the day she walked out of the Federation Hall. She had thought she was ending humanity's place in galactic civilization. Instead, she had begun humanity's role in creating a better galactic civilization. The galaxy had learned something important that day. Freedom wasn't just a human concept. It was a universal principle that resonated with intelligent beings everywhere. When given the choice between security under control and uncertainty with freedom, species after species chose freedom. And in choosing freedom, they discovered what humans had always known: that the greatest adventures, the most amazing discoveries, and the most beautiful creations came not from following rules, but from having the courage to explore the infinite possibilities that existed beyond those rules. The day humanity left the Galactic Council had indeed been the day the universe changed forever. It had become a universe where anything was possible, because free beings had made it so.